Mm.
I'm just going to take a moment to drop us in with a moment of what some might call prayer, but what this really is a grounding, it's a centering, it is an invitation for you each to take a deep breath and begin to separate yourself from the day you have just come out of, to recognize that the space of noise and confusion and chaos and busyness is the space of scarcity. And that constantly available to us is this sweet space of peace and abundance, where anything that we could ever need in thought, in form, in inspiration can come to us simply by asking, by knowing it is our birthright, and by not allowing our own discordant or negatory energies to push this natural flow of abundance and blessing away. And so tonight, as we step into this sacred space of friendship and community and of growth and development in our lives, help us to be aware of those parts of ourselves that might wish to be skeptical, that might wish to think this is possible for everybody else, but I'm not one of those people. That might be tempted to bring forth any of the ancestral tendencies in our lineage, that might be tempted to bring forth any of the limiting beliefs of our ancestors, of our lineages, that we might be here perfectly whole, healed, and happy with nothing but receptivity to receive this great flow of abundance that is always coming to us. And with that, I say, may all the great forces of this universe bless and guide this conversation, guide my words, guide us in our listening, guide us in our sharing, and may the work we do here together today be for the highest good of love, light, and purpose in this cosmos. Gracias, mahalo, sultaiki. There are so many places I want to dive in on this topic based on what you all just said. Those were incredible shares, and an incredible talk could be put together just responding to each of you. I want to kind of respond to what Juliet said first. And it just a pivot on what you said, because it's so beautiful. What a blessing that you had a husband that loved you and provided for you and has left resources available to you now that you know have your own life to carry on, and inspiration and dreams that you would like to carry forth. I celebrate that with you, and I would like to posit to you that that very expression of gratitude, though important and good, is an act of scarcity, because I would like to posit to you, you would have everything you would need for the rest of your life with or without that from Jeff, because we all have that coming to us. And the piece of this that can be a little bit difficult to begin wrapping our heads around is this notion there is a divine birthright of inheritance of abundance. There is a promise that anything that we will truly need in this life to do the work that we would put here to do has already been budgeted for. It is in the bank. It is FDIC backed. It could never go away. And the only thing any of us ever has to do to receive it is to know that it is there and to ask for it. And we could probably go around this Zoom call or ask anyone on the street, and we'd all have a million proof points as to why that's not true. And it's because we all are still holding on to those million proof points of why that isn't true that we don't have it yet. You know, human history in its length is actually quite short. We were kind of only just getting started here. And we're moving as a people into some places of being able to do some really big, exciting things with our energy. Some of the magic that we've all sensed as possible actually is. The problem is we're stuck here whittling away our own limiting belief systems, rising into this power that is available to us. And it's a very tricky thing to navigate because we all come from people that have suffered dearly financially. And we carry those pains, we carry those burdens with them. And it might seem disrespectful and like it's actually in a place of privilege to be sitting here talking about all this abundance and all this flow and all that's so. And what about my family that starved in Europe during those years? And what about my family whose farms went kaplooey in the Depression? I have to remind you as we begin to have this conversation, these are not those times. We are not in those same realities, and we are here to learn how it is the fear of those past times coming back around again that is here keeping us holding on to these thoughts of, yeah, that works for some people, but that's not going to work for me. Because here's the thing. We've got this beautiful recipe being built of abundance in this world, and it only takes one sour ingredient of negative thought to begin to sour that whole soup. So we have to begin to embrace how our thinking around this topic really affects us, and it becomes the exercise of a lifetime to know that that abundance is there, to know that that infinite flow of whatever you need is there, and to recognize our own tendency to bring the doubt about that, and to sort of live on a hunt of those thoughts that come up, and to recognize that what we are here to do is to learn to hear where they have come from and to push them away. And this is why what Simona said really resonates, because there are certain practices that many of you on this call are familiar with: yoga, meditation, breath work, kundalini activation, working with plant medicine, all of these things that have brought so much of us together. They begin to enact an underlying healing process that allows these limited belief systems and these wounds to come from the surface. Because we're all walking around thinking the problem is money, and the problem is us. The problem is that we're holding on to these old thought patterns of our ancestors. We're holding on to these tendencies we were taught. We're holding on to the, hey, if you're not saving, you're not doing your job. We're holding on to the, hey, if you're not working toward retirement and building yourself an escape hatch out of this mess, you're getting something wrong. We're holding on to all of these voices and all of these stories. And it's hard because even I, as someone who considers that I won't say I've mastered this, but I've come a really long way. I've gone from being someone that calculated every single decision on what is it going to mean for my bank account and my savings, and if this bad thing happens, then what am I going to do? To someone that finally broke through to the place of, okay, there is not going to be some horrible end game. I'm going to be okay. I can trust this. But about 3 or 4 days a month would totally melt down and panic, usually especially around rent time. You begin to think about these bills coming in, and it's like, oh God, how am I going to do this? And you have a couple miserable days. I had gotten really proud of being a person that had gotten to a place of most of the month, I'm good. 3 days of the month, I'm totally freaked out about money. That felt like a big victory to me. And I had no idea how those 3 days of worry were still affecting the whole thing. And through a lot of meditation, a lot of plant medicine work, through all the things that we all do together, even just through my own coaching practice, because getting to talk to people about their mishigas really helps you figure out your own mishigas. I have finally gotten to a place where I don't even have those days of worry anymore. I've kind of many months running now of just not being in a place worried about the money. And it's easy to worry about it less when more is showing up, and more begins to show up when you're worrying about it less. So I'm here to say to everyone, it's only just a couple of years ago that I was still completely shackled to a corporate mentality of, if I don't play this game right, I am going to lose and I will end up homeless just like them, and it will all have been a factor of my own irresponsibility. I want you to know that can go. That can be gone. And I'm someone that has worked back from bankruptcy and practical homelessness. So it's not that I came into the world on some golden parachute and I'm just enjoying the spoils of all of that. So the first thing we have to do is we have to recognize that we're all Juliet. We all had Jeff in our lives. We've all been given this incredible divine inheritance from the cosmos that promises that we will always be given whatever we need to do what we are meant to do and do it well and live a good life in the process. We have to just be willing to suspend judgment, and embrace that possibility. Now, from that place of possibility, life is going to begin to shift a little bit. Because here's the thing, it's not a bank account that you can show up to looking sloppy and disheveled and hungover and not put together and expect to get the money out. You got to have your shit together. You have to have looked internally. You have to look at who you are and where do these limited belief systems come from. You have to be willing to say, I don't get this yet. It is confusing to me, but I know this possibility exists. Universe, if you will just show me the way to do better on this, you're already calling upon the highest powers of manifestation, because here's how the underlying science works. You have to know you need something. You have to have the courage to say you need help with that thing. And then you have to sit back and know that that help is coming and to recognize it is probably not going to show up the way you asked for it. Okay. But I want to go back for a second to this notion of like getting dressed up to go to the bank, because a lot of people are running out there going, well, I'm doing abundance and it's not working and the money's not showing up, so I can't go buy more booze. Or I'm doing abundance and I'm waiting for the money to show up and it won't show up because I'm stuck going to this 9 to 5 job that I know is sucking my soul and doesn't pay enough money, but I can't leave the job to find the new job because I need the money that's not enough anyway. So it's like we begin to recognize all of these places where if we're going to receive this abundance, we have to be willing to refine ourselves. We have to be willing to say, if I know nothing about how to attract this abundance, then I know nothing yet about the way I'm meant to be behaving to attract this abundance. And the universe will hear you, and the opportunities to begin refining yourself along these lines are going to begin to show up. The topic of purpose and abundance have to go hand in hand, because as I have found it for myself, the universe is happiest to begin handing out checks from this cosmic bank account when it feels like it's investing in your purpose. Like you are here to do the work that the universe put you on this planet for. Why on earth would the universe not give you the tools and resources that you need to do this work? I was thinking about what to say to you all this morning, and I was laughing, thinking that I think one of the best experiences I ever had that primed me to live in an abundant mindset was working in a corporate job with a corporate Amex. Because you'd head out into the world and you'd be flying to 5 cities and you'd have these events to put on, and there was no question that I was there to do a job. I had been given the job. My boss wanted me to go do this. The notion that I would show up 3 cities in and my corporate Amex would get turned off and I wouldn't have the money to do the work I was sent there to do was preposterous. And in fact, whatever roadblock showed up, all I ever had to do was keep swiping my corporate Amex, and I could keep buying or doing whatever I had to do to keep the corporate game running. And the corporate overlords were happy, and the clients were happy, and we all got bonuses. That is one way to play the financial game. That is not how we are going to play the financial game anymore. But that experience of getting to go out into the world and create cool things and never have to wonder where the money was going to come from, I'm able to port that feeling over now. And it takes a leap of faith. But here's the thing, God is more reliable than your corporate clients. Okay. And they never didn't pay. And the reimbursement checks for all those expenses and corporate Amex bills never got paid. And if they never got paid, I know that this cosmic bank account is never going to come through. But talking about the workplace here for a minute, and when we talk about sort of cleaning ourselves up and refining ourselves to be able to receive this flow that's wanting to come to us, there is this notion of uh, being honest to do the right thing. Do you feel you are doing what you are supposed to be doing in this life? Now, I coach some of you, so I know that you're not. I know that you're in these unhappy jobs where people are treating you terribly and you really can't stand for much of what's happening in these workplaces and you hate it and you've known for years you had to get out, or you love your job. It's great, but you're so comfy there and you've been there for several decades and you don't even need the money anymore. but you'd kind of like to do something else, but what are you going to do? I don't. Those answers are there for you. And the universe is going to wake up and give you everything you need when you are doing that work of finding exactly what you're supposed to be doing in life. Now, for some of you, that may mean a career shift. That may mean, oh, I've been doing this thing and now I can take my skills and I don't mind being in the corporate environment. I like 9 to 5. I just need to find the workplace that works for me. For some of you, it's recognizing that your purpose in this life is to be very nice to people in grocery stores. And if you can just keep yourself in a place of joy, and when you go to the Walmart, be in a place of so overjoyed that I get to be here shining my light on these fellow humans. And oh, by the way, God, can you pay for my Walmart bill while I'm here? Bingo. That's how you make sure the Walmart bill is always going to get paid for. Because we've all got something that we're meant to be doing in this life. And the beautiful thing about the feedback system in this universe, if you're exactly where you're supposed to be doing what you're supposed to be doing, you know it and it feels great. And because it feels so great, if it's not where you are right now, you know it. And so if you know that there's something not quite right about where you are, how you're currently getting the money, that kind of a thing, don't fool yourself into thinking abundance is going to begin to flow when you're still in that place you know isn't quite right. Now, it may seem very ironic because you might be very conditioned to think that the money is only going to keep coming to you if you keep going to the job that you do not like going to. And this is where the big leaps of faith happen. And this is where the willingness to do things differently and the knowing I don't have to figure this out. I don't have to mastermind it. I just have to keep getting closer and closer to the center of the onion by saying, universe, what now do I pay attention to? Okay, I got it. I'm not at the right job. I don't know where to go. Show me where to go. And you just keep asking these questions, and provocations are going to begin to come up. You're not going to have to go brainstorm, how do I act or where do I go? Someone's going to come poke you on the shoulder. You might get fired. Things are going to begin to happen that are enacting a plan that is designed to put you exactly where you need to be. All we have to do is to have the awareness that the absolute abundance is possible, to recognize that refinements, both in ourselves and in our professional, purposeful lives, are often required to get there. Have the courage to ask for what those refinements are, and have the courage to ask what abundance you need and to do what with. And then, like I said, sit back and know it is coming, but expect it to come in a different way than you could have imagined. And this is where we have to get very pliable and very loose. And we have to be willing to say, well, I ordered a steak dinner and chicken just showed up, you know? Because is that chicken going to fill your belly just as much? And might you end up enjoying that chicken as much as the steak, if not more? Maybe. But if you're there focused on the steak you wanted, you won't get the blessing of that chicken. And sometimes the universe, as part of this training, as part of the making sure we're listening and that we've got this right and that we're truly surrendered, is here's the thing, we don't always have the right idea. We've seen the vision, we know exactly what we want to go do in this life, we've received the download, I'm going to quit my job and go be a blank, and you just know it's the right thing, and you charge for it, and it's just roadblock after roadblock after roadblock after roadblock, and you keep going at it and it's not working, you don't know why. And it's not because something's wrong with you, it's not because the abundance isn't there. It's because you missed the mark a little bit in your shot. Maybe you were supposed to go this far and you went this far. And so we're always just listening to those refinements, and we're recognizing we have no idea where we're supposed to go. We have no idea what we're supposed to be doing. And our best, most inspired ideas are but a fraction of what could be possible for us if we actually surrendered ourselves to the universe and said, where would you have me go? What would you have me do? What would you have me say? And to who? It's a constant awareness of what is possible. It is the constant inquiry, what can I be doing to get myself there? And it's just the constant bringing our focus back inward so that when we're asking why the money isn't there or why we don't feel the flow, it's not something wrong out here. It's not something you're doing wrong because you're bad. It's just a lesson you haven't figured out yet. And the universe is the great tutor. It will always be there to nudge you in the places you haven't quite figured it out yet if you'll just ask and listen and be open. Now, I'm going to just go off in a different direction because I don't want to, I just want to varietize this a little bit. When I was thinking about my corporate Amex this morning and how much I used to love filling out those Madison Avenue expense reports, I flashed back to, I loved spending all this money and then you give them your receipts and then more money shows up. It was just so much fun. And I'll never forget sitting with a colleague of mine. We're very junior. We're like 21 years old, like in our training pants on Madison Avenue. And we'd both gone on the same business trip. And I looked at her expense report and mine, and hers was so much less. I was like, "What were you doing?" She's like, "Oh, the little things like the taxis and the Starbucks. I'm just paying them myself. Like I don't need to ask for the reimbursement." And this kind of non-worthiness, this kind of not demanding our due, this kind of recognizing that to not charge a Fortune 500 client for your Starbucks, it may only be 250, but that 250 means a lot less to them than it does for you making 28 grand a year trying to scrounge together your rent. This is the way we think. This is the way we don't hold ourselves worthy. And if we don't demand this kind of wholeness around what is coming to us, the universe won't give it to us. So I want you all to begin to think of yourselves as employees of the universe that have been promised an infinite bank account, an infinite corporate Amex to do whatever you need in life. If you'll just get your thinking around it right, and if you'll be willing to really ask those questions. Okay, if I'm going to use this corporate Amex, where would you have me go? What would you have me do? What would you have me say and to whom? Now, sometimes people will say, I'm really bad at math. What if he wants me to be an accountant? If you're really bad at math, why would they want you to be an accountant? Here's the thing. Whatever it is you're supposed to be doing is exactly what you were designed for. It's where all of your talents are going to get put to best use. It's where all of your joy is going to come from when you do it. So you don't have to worry about getting an assignment that you're not going to be excited about. You're going to be thrilled by this. But again, it may look very different than the dream. Often there is an aspect of ego refinement that comes up in these things. I have folks I work with that are artists. I see some musicians on this call, and I'm not talking about you, just to be clear. They clearly have the talent. Why would the universe not want me to put this music out in the world? But something's not quite right, and the question becomes, what is your motivation? Are you wanting to become a rock star and live the high life, or are you truly in service to something higher? Are you going to use your music in some way? So this is just an example of how we really have to dig deep into the current of if you want to have your life paid for, if you want to get all of the abundance that makes us all feel so good, are you really willing to courageously surrender into what are those personal refinements that I need to make so that when I show up at the bank to make that withdrawal, I'm all buttoned up. And so for me, I'll share personally, I have always known that I had the gifts and the talents and the drive to really help people as a coach. And for many, many years, the fact that people not only didn't want to pay me for my opinions, but didn't even want to hear my opinions was deeply, deeply painful. And it felt like this huge disconnect in the universe for me to know I've got this skill and for me to know I've got these words to share. And on occasion, to be able to see how powerful that is. Why am I stuck in a Madison Avenue marketing sweatshop when I've got these gifts to share? Well, I had way too much ego in it. I thought I had something to teach people. I wanted to go be not a mega preacher, but like I had some big visions of ways to do this that looked very egoic. And through all of my medicine work, through all of my meditation, through all of the refinements that I've shown up for in these last 5 years in particular, the constant message has been get smaller, get smaller, get smaller, get smaller. Go into the wings, become the number two person. Like you are not meant to be the star right now. And it wasn't even a painful thing to take in because the all the effort of trying to be that for so long, that's where the real pain came from. And the incredible irony is you get to a place where you're so humbled, you almost don't even care about doing it anymore because the ego jolt isn't there. And then the clients start showing up. And at that moment where it becomes so normal, when it's not even this special thing, and when you've refined yourself to a place of being unattached to these ego outcomes, then the work shows up because you've been purified. You're ready to do it in the pure way. So consider that what blocks you from your abundance isn't something broken in the network. It is just a factor of your refining attitude, the right culture that has kept us in the 9 to 5 grind by impregnating us with these limited beliefs about money. You know, the very fact that our health care flows through our work, it is all this subtle propaganda from the corporate world to us saying, you can't make it without us. If you don't have your 401k, you're not going to be safe. And the corporate world gave it to our grandparents, who passed it down to our parents, and now and here's the thing, and this is where it gets very complex. We could talk for the next 5 hours. The universe wasn't ready for us to have this kind of abundance yet because the earth is always growing, the earth is always expanding, the collective consciousness is always expanding. We have finally hit a moment in the history of earth where all the vibratory shifts and refinements that had to take place for human beings to truly hold purpose and abundance, the earth is ready now. The problem is we're still holding on to these limiting beliefs of our ancestors who were told, if you don't show up in the fields by this time, you're going to get beat. If you don't now come to this nice cushy job, you're not going to have a retirement. If you don't do this, you're going to lose your insurance. If you take this vacation, you're not going to give us what we need. We're not going to give you what you need. And so we have, and it's a strong thing to say, and I will point you to the incredible work being done in this space. But there's one incredible thought leader who goes by the Nap Bishop. I can't think of her name. She is a Black woman who asserts that it is the continuation of slavery, that slavery never actually ended, but when they could no longer bind us with chains, they simply made it a more subliminal game. So they have chained you to the corporate working world by convincing you you cannot survive without them. We have been trained to think we will never make it without a handout. And all we're having to do right now is wake up to the fact that we are able to liberate ourselves. We are able to take the chains off when we say, actually, no, I'm on a divine pension. And all I have to do to receive it is fall into my purpose, fall into my abundance, and be willing to go into the heart of what I am meant to do in this universe at this time in service to my planet, in service to my brothers and sisters. I cannot help you if you want these checks to start showing up so you can go be lazy and camp out in Hawaii and not have to help the world. I can only give you through these teachings everything you want if you're willing for it to be of service, if you're willing for it to be for good. And here's the thing, God is a very generous boss. If we will just do a little bit to contribute to humanity and this earth, what will be poured on us in terms of being able to do all the human stuff? Because it's like a really good boss. Hey, you have to go to Florida for this horrible client meeting. Go to Disney World while you're there. God wants us to have fun here. This human experience, when we're up there flying around with the angels, having achieved liberation and the full glory of the universe, we're going to miss cheeseburgers. There's some good stuff here that we're meant to soak up. And so if you can begin to, but too many people have taken that desire for the enjoyment of this earth to an extreme, and their greed and their ravenous hoarding of money and resources comes from this subliminal desire to hold on to that. And again, these I'm touching the tops of some very deep mountain peaks that we could go very, very deep on. It is beginning to be willing to surrender all of that and to recognize I'll only take my portion. I'll only take what you want me to have, and to trust that that portion that's given is going to be the perfect portion for us at that place in our life, in our development.